Okay, it's Henry again, and this is my second work in progress video for the 1/60th scale HY2M Gouf. And this work in progress is going to cover painting the kit. So I didn't want to just do the standard, frankly kind of boring blue Gouf color scheme. So I decided to change it up a little bit in two different ways. One, I'm actually going to use the blue prototype Gouf colors from Gundam The Origin, the MSD kit. And this isn't the standard one, this is like the P-Bandai version, but it's kind of sort of the same colors as the Gouf, but it's got black for the upper torso and the skirt armor, and it's got the colors of the shield are actually kind of inverted. It's got black on the outside and then light blue on the inside. It's got a big number 2 on the shield. It's got some white pinstripes, and then it's got white for the thighs and the biceps. So that's the color scheme I'm going to use. And the second way I'm changing this up is I'm going to do a painting technique that I've never done before, called modulation. Some of you probably have heard of it. It's getting really popular now among not just Gundam modelers, but armor modelers as well. And I've even seen modulation done on like figure kits and things like that. So it's really popular right now. So I figured, why not? I'll give it a try. It's something I've never done before, so why not broaden my horizons? The theory behind modulation is that it's not realistic shading, but rather it's very stylized, and you create a gradient. Actually, it's probably easier just to show it than to describe it. This is the backpack. You create a gradient, whereas normally on something like this I would have like darker shading around the edges and around these panel lines and details and stuff. On modulation, the part is going to be a gradient depending on whatever direction you really want the gradient to go. I've chosen to have my colors lighter at the top and then fade to darker at the bottom. And you can reverse that. You can have lighter at the bottom, darker at the top. You can do a left-right gradient. You can do a diagonal gradient. Pretty much any direction you want. And the thing is, you do that not on like a whole part, but you do it on each individual panel, so that when the whole thing goes together, you've got, if I can fit this together, there you go, you've got an effect like this, where you've got the light to dark on this panel and then light to dark on this backpack as well. And it really looks cool when you apply it to more complex parts. Like this is the back of the shield, and I did two different shades of gray here. I did sort of a brownish gray for these little panels in here, masked those off, and then did everything else in a neutral gray, and applying the modulation to each one of those individual areas that is divided by a panel line or a raised surface. And it does involve quite a bit of masking, because each time you do one of these hard sectioned off areas to separate the modulation, you got to use masking tape to separate that. And it is time consuming, but it does present kind of a cool effect. And honestly, I haven't started on the blue parts yet. I've pretty much just painted the gray parts, that's all, and a few of the black parts. And I'm really looking forward to how this is going to end up looking, because I'm kind of excited about it at this point. So that is my plan for this kit. I'm in the middle of doing the modulation on some of the black parts. This is the side skirt, this is the base black coat, and I've already done the modulation paint job on the top. Now I've masked that off, and I got to do it on the bottom along this panel line here. So, and also for the pinstripes, instead of using decals, I decided to do those with paint. I've actually already painted this white first, and then ran a strip of masking tape across that, and then painted black on top. So once the modulation is done, it'll look something like this, and it'll have that nice little white pinstripe on it. That's got a little masking imperfection right there I'll have to fix, but this is the general idea. So, oh, here's the shoulder armor. Looking pretty good. This is after one pass of putty and primer. Sanded everything down nice and smooth. Gonna do, I think, probably just one more pass of putty should get these looking correct, and then I can go ahead and start painting these. I'll probably end up painting the blue parts last. But, yeah, that's my plan. Okay, so before I start painting the blue parts, there is a little bit of masking I have to do. This is the front of the shield, and it's going to be painted blue, and you'll notice that I've painted the front white here. Now, the prototype Gouf MSD origin version, whatever, has a big number 2 on the front of the shield. So that is what I'm going to do here with this masking tape. So I've got it painted white, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay down some masking tape here and draw a big number 2 on the tape like so. Just like that. Looks straight enough, I think. Maybe not perfectly straight in a few areas, but good enough. Okay, so now I'm going to peel this tape off, lay it on my cutting mat, and now I'm going to use my hobby knife to cut out these individual shapes for the big number 2. So now we've got our big number 2 cut out. We can gently lift that off of the cutting mat and place it on here. I want to have a little bit of a space between the 2 halves of the number 2, so orient it like so. Uh-oh, that one's a little bit crooked. And then the last part goes right here. Alright, so now we're ready to paint this part blue. Had to do a few other parts as well with the masking and pinstriping and stuff. Like on the feet here, we got this rectangle with a number 2 in it. On the cockpit hatch, there's another number 2. And then on the shoulder spikes, it's got these little white pinstripes going around each spike. And I find that the easiest way to do pinstriping is to paint the color you want the stripe to be first, and then put on a thin strip of masking tape, and then paint the color the part's supposed to be. So in the end, it'll have a white pinstripe, and then the rest of the parts will be blue. So the airbrushing phase of the paint job is now complete. I do have a little bit of hand painting I'm going to do, but not very much at all. Basically, just these little areas in between the pipe segments. I'm going to go in with some silver or gunmetal or something and do those. And also the inside of the finger barrels, I'm going to do those silver as well. And then the little rumble roll pilot figure, I got to paint him. But other than that, the basic main part of the paint job is complete. And it's looking pretty good, I guess. Like I said, this is my first time doing a modulation for a paint job, so I guess it looks good. I'm certainly not unhappy with it, but it's just outside of my realm of experience, so I think it looks halfway decent. So I went, like I said, I went with the P-Bandai Origin Gouf color scheme, and I really like it. I really like how it's kind of the same as the original Gouf's color scheme, but it just changes up the placement of the colors and then adds this white in for the thighs and the biceps. I think that white really doesn't change it up a lot, but it changes it up enough that it feels fresh and new. And I do have a little bit of masking that I'm going to have to do some touch up on, particularly these pinstripes. I know they look fine from this distance, but when you get up close, there's a few places where I had some masking bleed, but that shouldn't be very difficult to touch up pretty quick with a little bit of paint. So I've got some decals on the way from that I got. Basically, I went on eBay and found a seller in China that had taken the Gouf version 2.0 master grade decals and blown them up to 1/60th scale, so those should be here in a couple days. And the next video will be decaling and weathering. So also I'm making a little display base for them to stand on, nothing too extravagant, but I'll cover that in the third work in progress video as well. So that does it for this part, and with that, I'll see you guys next time.